The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Data Management Users Conference 2020. This is our third session. Today, we're going to be talking about e-enterprise, some other components of e-enterprise, and also the digital strategy and kind of how we made that connection between the digital strategy and the CIDWIS modernization project. Later on in the session, we're going to hear from Damon Gutterman and Victoria Phillips. They're going to be talking a little bit about strategic partnerships, kind of how IT is structured at the state for them. And they both participated on the CIDWIS modernization board, so maybe we'll get some impressions from them after we're done. So a couple of housekeeping reminders. Again, please submit questions at any time throughout the broadcast to the questions panel, and we will direct them when it's appropriate. We're also recording the event. So this will be made available through the CIDWIS user community video library later today. Yesterday's broadcasts are already online. So if you've got a login to the CIDWIS user community, you can go on and check those out. If you don't have a login, send me an email and I'll get you set up. If you're not a state or EPA person, just send me an email and I'll get you access to the summary materials. I think that's all we have right now. So I'm going to introduce our first, yes.
It's Damon. You're seeing an error on your screen. We're seeing it in the broadcast about save-in error.
Interesting.
It's
okay.
Saying the recording path specified in recording sessions does not exist.
Okay. Well, let's.
And I just clicked an X and it disappeared.
Excellent. Well, let's see. Let's keep pressing through. All right. So I'm going to kick over to Kurt Rakaukas. Kurt's going to talk about e-enterprise a little bit for us. And Kurt is with ECOS. He's executive project manager over there and the expert of all things e-enterprise. So hopefully our technical issues have abated, and I'll pass it over to you, Kurt.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Coming
and
through.
See me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's see if I can, my screen's coming through okay?
Yeah, everything's looking good.
All right, great. Well, morning, everybody, and thanks for having me today. Again, my name is Kurt Rakaukas. I work for the Environmental Council of the States. If you don't know ECOS, we're the membership association for the directors of the state environmental agencies in the US, so kind of the ASDO equivalent for the state commissioners. I help support engagement in a partnership called e-enterprise for the environment, which is an initiative that our members jointly govern with folks from tribal environmental agencies and US EPA. Those of you that attended the opening session of DMUC yesterday morning heard a little bit about e-enterprise and its digital strategy from EPA's Chief Information Officer, Vaughn Noga. This morning, I'll go into a little bit more depth on each of those topics. I'll talk about some of the connection points to the drinking water community. And I also want to show you a tool called the e-enterprise community inventory platform, or EECIP, and review some of the ways that it can be a useful collaboration tool for drinking water administrators and data managers. So what is e-enterprise for the environment? I was asked this fairly recently by my 9-year-old son sometime this past summer. And as you all are no doubt aware, there's been a whole lot more overlap between personal and professional time these days. And after a bunch of weeks of observing us and our engaged in our day jobs, our son was naturally a little curious to learn a little bit more about what kept us so busy and what was compelling us to suddenly dole out these enormous amounts of screen time to help keep him occupied during the day. And as we were explaining to him what it is we do, I was kind of struck by and a little bit envious of the ease with which my wife was able to field those questions about what she does. She works for a weekly publication, so she simply explained that, well, she's part of a team that puts together a magazine, and the fruits of her labor show up in our mailbox every week. And you could instantly see, a look of recognition as he held the magazine, the latest issue, aloft and said, "Oh, so you make this." And then he turned to me and said, "So Daddy, what do you make?" And I started to perspire a little bit and said, "Well, son, I don't exactly make things, but I do work with a lot of great people who protect the environment. And then I started spouting off something about e-enterprise and process improvement and collaboration and advanced technologies. And I could see the look of recognition slowly start to fade from his face, and his eyes shifted towards the Nintendo Switch. And I knew I had to act quickly to prevent his confusion from morphing into some profound disappointment. And I said, so, you know, the Marvel superheroes, right? They've got these awesome powers and abilities, but, you know, sometimes Captain America and Iron Man, they don't really see eye to eye. Sometimes they struggle to succeed on their own because their job of protecting the planet is so big. And it wasn't really until they came together as the Avengers that they were able to tap into their full potential and combine their unique roles and their talents as part of a highly functioning team. And it was really only then that they were able to defeat Thanos and make the Earth safe again. And it's the same thing in environmental protection. States, tribes, and EPA all play a key role. And the system doesn't work well unless everybody in it is working together, combining resources and sharing tools and technology. And e-enterprise is an organizing framework to help make that happen. So in a way, Daddy works for the Avengers, and that's kind of cool, right? I don't know that he entirely bought into it, but I thought the analogy worked pretty well and it was pretty cool. So that's what I'm sticking with. If you want the more textbook definition, you can think about e-enterprise as a model or a framework for states, tribes, and EPA to come together and collaborate to build a better environmental protection enterprise, one that's modern, one that's responsive to today's challenges. And so while it's not necessarily the tangible thing that my son wants it to be, it is a forum for agency leaders to jointly develop strategies and projects that can help the partners in our federated system work more effectively together and deliver better environmental protection services. So it's about creating more responsive programs that can be hopefully more proactive than reactive and deliver better environmental results. It's about modernizing the business of environmental protection and delivering services that reduce transaction costs and better meet the needs of the regulated community, the public, and fellow agencies that are part of the enterprise together. And it's about strengthening that partnership that underlies our system of environmental protection, basically building that more highly functioning team of environmental Avengers. We work toward those three main goals by setting up project teams that adhere to the three main pillars of the enterprise. So first, teams should look for opportunities to streamline business processes using techniques like Lean to fully understand all the players and the steps in a given process or workflow. And then once that process has been mapped out, the team can take out the unneeded steps, optimize its efficiency, and set up a system to measure results. And then we look for ways to enhance those efficiency improvements by applying modern technologies. So those can be advanced monitoring technologies, advanced monitoring tools for addressing air and water quality issues. They might include new digital services for the regulated community or more open access to information for the public. And we're seeing more and more rapid advancement in technologies like Internet of Things sensors, cloud computing, artificial intelligence. And those can really open the door to true transformations in how agencies approach environmental protection. An example, there's some really interesting work underway at EPA and in some states to use artificial intelligence to predict the likelihood of violations occurring, so agencies can better target what are increasingly scarce inspection resources. And again, since everyone is in this together, e-enterprise really promotes finding ways to harness those technologies together and build shareable solutions to common business problems that can benefit everyone. And that really brings us to the third pillar, shared governance. E-enterprise really is it's a forum for putting cooperative federalism into practice. The entire initiative and its teams are all governed jointly by representatives from states, tribes, and EPA. We strive to make sure that everyone has early and meaningful engagement on all the enterprise matters, whether you're talking about a specific project or strategic goal setting, or global strategic goal setting. And e-enterprise groups, to the extent that we can, always try to operate on a consensus basis and with mutual respect from where other agencies are coming from. Speaking of shared governance and technology, I want to mention that the Environmental Information Exchange Network, which many of you are likely familiar with, is a key part of e-enterprise. The network began in the early 2000s as a more automated way for states, tribes, and EPA to share data using standardized web services. And the Exchange Network really was responsible for creating much of the foundation of e-enterprise. It had a really strong emphasis on joint governance, shared technology solutions. And in 2015, the two initiatives merged together under a common structure. And they're really two sides of the same coin. They complement each other really, really nicely. So e-enterprise really re-emphasizes the importance of process optimization and better service delivery. And the Exchange Network brings its 2 decades of cooperative standards development and technology implementation. And taken together, they really play complementary roles in supporting those 3 pillars that were on the previous slide. The enterprise is focused on the program improvements, and the Exchange Network manages the technology portfolio of the enterprise that enables better processes and streamlined workflows. EPA also administers the Exchange Network Grant Program, which has been, over the years, a really critical source of funding for innovation and modernization in the states and tribes. And that program continues to this day and is still a very important source of funds for state and tribal programs. I want to talk a little bit about the e-enterprise digital strategy. If you joined yesterday's session, you heard the EPA CIO talk about the digital strategy, and it really is one of the core e-enterprise initiatives. The strategy started coming together about 18 months ago or so, after some leaders on the enterprise reflected on some of the key challenges facing environmental agencies. The issues and challenges that folks face today, they're more complex than ever, and they require more cross-program and interagency cooperation. Everybody's under pressure to respond to demands for better data, decision-making tools. There are greater expectations for efficient and self-service online transactions that bring down costs and deliver better outcomes. And all this is happening when budgets are getting tighter and tighter. And in recent months, the pandemic has really only exacerbated those issues, placed even more strain on the resources and forcing everybody to think about how to innovate quickly. So the digital strategy responds to some of those pressures by setting a shared vision to guide joint investments in information management. And it lays out a set of principles and strategic actions that can help agencies keep up with changing technologies and use them to unlock new capabilities that can transform programs and increase the efficiency with which they operate. But that isn't something that any one agency can do completely on its own. These kinds of challenges, they really demand collective action and coordinated commitment, and the digital strategy is intended to be an important step in that direction. So the strategy is built around 3 core principles. The first is a commitment to being customer-centric. Vaughn really drove home the importance of this point in his opening talk yesterday. Whether you're streamlining processes, building IT systems, or in his case, trying to solve repeated power outages, all stakeholders need to be represented and empowered to help shape the solutions to those problems. So the strategy preaches the importance of using user-centered design and process improvement to influence how we create and manage and deliver new tools and technologies. There's going to be a session later on this afternoon on CIBWIS modernization, and I can say that this principle has really been a main guiding light for everyone during the reset of that work. The modernization board that came together has a nicely balanced group of state and EPA representatives that bring program expertise as well as knowledge of IT issues. And their work has really emphasized collaboration and that user perspective. The second principle in the digital strategy is to build an enterprise that's information centric. I'll again reference yesterday's opening session. Stephen Forrest from Montana, I think, said it best. He said, data are the absolute heart and soul of everything that environmental agencies do. And so it only makes sense to focus on managing information in really smart and modern ways. That means data ought to be easily discoverable. They should be properly and completely described with metadata so people can use it. And it needs to be openly but securely available through services and APIs rather than trapped in documents and inaccessible data systems. Just a quick word, if you aren't familiar with the term API, those are application programming interfaces. You can think of these as something like electrical sockets. They allow you to plug into a system and access its data or a bit of functionality, kind of in the same way that you can access power from the electrical grid. And you can connect and configure a really wide range of different tools to APIs, just as if you were plugging in a hairdryer or a washing machine or a blender or some other type of appliance. Offering that type of ready access to data is really fundamentally important to the work of environmental agencies. It's what allows you to integrate information across programs, make better management decisions, better inform the public, and provide better services to the regulated community. And it's certainly going to be a crucial component of a modernized CIBWIS. So building in an information-centric way is really a huge part of what the digital strategy is all about. And finally, the strategy emphasizes the importance of using shared platforms as much as possible. Again, resources are shrinking, but agencies are still under a lot of pressure to maintain or improve the services they deliver. One of the best ways to overcome that challenge is by getting better about sharing and finding those opportunities to build something once and reuse it. That helps eliminate duplication of effort. It can reduce costs, and it can bring a measure of consistency to how services and information are delivered. That is not at all an easy thing to do across programs and across agencies. It requires compromise. It requires a real commitment to a level of standardization and a lot of coordination and foresight to build with multiple use cases in mind. But with cloud technology, it's the IT part is getting easier and easier. Many IT services are becoming commoditized and made available in the cloud. So it's becoming more practical to buy or rent pieces of functionality that can evolve with changing technology. And the whole point of the enterprise is to provide that space and that structure for joint conversation and decision making. So the tools and the support structure are there to help make this a reality. And I think it really does have the potential to be a game changer in the years ahead. And again, this is also, for this community, I think a key part of the CIBRIS modernization strategy to build a system that runs on a shared platform and offers those opportunities for reuse and efficiency. And so eEnterprise is looking at these major system modernizations, like we're seeing now with CIBRIS, as these really critical opportunities to put the digital strategy into practice. The NIPTs and AIR communities are facing their own modernization needs. As those systems near the end of their life cycles, the programs have these rare but really invaluable opportunities to take a fresh look at past practices and reimagine what's possible with new technologies that are at everyone's disposal now. So eEnterprise is continuing to advocate for inclusive conversations that envision how the program should operate in the future, and then using that shared vision to drive the design of new processes and new systems that align with the principles of the digital strategy. It's all about putting users in the driver's seat, building a solid foundation of data-centric services, and sharing functionality so that we minimize any duplication of effort and make sure that nobody's getting left behind. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about a tool that eEnterprise partners have built to make it easier to get work done as an enterprise and connect across agency boundaries. It's called the eEnterprise Community Inventory Platform, or EECIP. EECIP it's both an online community and a living inventory of IT and process improvement projects that have been undertaken by different environmental agencies. Several states, led by New Hampshire, got together and formed this idea. They built the tool with funding from EPA, and their main motivation was that time and time again, they would hear from folks looking to connect with other agencies to understand how they solve the business problem, or whether anybody may have already developed a solution or a piece of software that they might be able to reuse or build upon in some way, or learn a lesson from. And so the team created EECIP. ECOS is now hosting it on behalf of the community. Since the site launched just about 2 years ago in 2018, it's accumulated over 500 users. We've got over 2,000 projects registered from more than 200 agencies across the US. So it's really kind of blossoming into a nice tool for collaboration and communication among agencies. It's really straightforward and easy to use. You can find it by opening your favorite web browser and then visiting eecip.net. If you don't already have an account, you'll just need to quickly register with the site. All you'll really need is anybody can register. There are certain access limitations for folks that aren't government users. If you have a government-sponsored email address, such as a .gov or a .us, it's really simple and streamlined to register. You just put your information in and you'll be automatically approved once you verify your email. Once you're in, you can set up a personal profile, You can enter professional interests that you might have, and agency project information. And that's kind of when the fun begins. Then you can start searching and adding questions and answers to the discussion forums. You can connect with colleagues from other agencies. You can look for opportunities to reuse resources that other agencies make available. And you can become part of this broader environmental protection community and connect with other agencies and individuals that could potentially make good project partners or collaborators. I think for the drinking water community, EECIP could hold some promise as a supplement to some of the CIDWIS user forums that ASWA maintains, particularly as you all make plans for transitions to a modernized CIDWIS. You might find it to be a useful tool to help track the use of different interfacing applications, for example, or identify pools of similar agencies that have overlapping needs, similar technology environments, and identify groups that make for good partners in some sort of a collaboration. How are we doing? Are we okay on time, Anthony? I can give people a quick dime tour of the tool if there's time, but if we run short, I can skip it.
We're doing great on time, Kurt, and I'd love to see a tour of EECIP, because I think this is really something I wanted to highlight to the community, the idea that the platform could serve as a potential forum to support some state activities after the modernization, applications delivered. So we've got some new version of CIDWIS, and like you said, for supporting interfacing application development and sharing, I think that EECIP has a lot of opportunity.
Sure, great. Can you guys see I had switched applications here. I'm now in my web browser. Hopefully we don't run into any issues here. Everybody see this okay?
Yep, coming in.
Okay, great. So if you're not a registered user already, you go to eecip.net. This is the screen you'll see. Again, registration, quick and easy. Just click the register button. All you need to do is put in your email address, first and last name, and then you're good to go. You'll register, you'll get an email asking you to confirm your address, and then you'll be in. I will log into the system since I have an account already. This is what the EECIP home screen looks like. Up top, there's a few key elements to note here. We've got an announcements section where we put information about featured discussions that are happening. Every few weeks will feature a couple of new projects from the database, just to give those some visibility. Right now we've got one from Massachusetts DEP and Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission. We will keep track of any meetings that are happening across the community and try and post those here on the meetings list. Down below that, you'll see a couple of sections, one with a list of recent projects that have been added to the database and another with recent discussion topics. These are all customized to match some preferences that you can set, subscription options that you can set. Let me show you what that looks like. When you create your profile, you can establish different personal and professional interests and subscribe to different tags. You can also subscribe to different communities of interest. So I'm subscribed to one on permitting, one on ArcGIS story maps. We've got a community of interest around COVID-19, given all the sudden interest in how folks were changing business processes and how people were changing business practices to respond to the pandemic. So you can subscribe to those. You can select different notification options if you want to get immediate notifications when there's a new conversation or a new addition to a discussion topic that you're following. You can have that happen. You can get notified monthly with a set of updates for new projects and discussions that have popped up in areas that align with your interests and subscriptions. So those subscriptions drive the content that you'll see in this section here. So these are new projects that have been added recently that match my subscriptions. And I'll show you the discussion portion of the site a little bit. These are topics that have been added recently that match my subscriptions. Move my GoToMeeting panel out of the way here. Come on, there we go. Up here, these three green bars, these are kind of along with the more detailed navigation on the left side. This is kind of how you interact with the site. You can search the inventory. I'll go there. And this allows you to put in keywords to look for projects, people, different agencies that might match your interests. I'll maybe run a quick search for the phrase drinking water and see what we come up with. Oh, look at that, ASWA right at the top, followed by Anthony. So if you don't have Anthony on speed dial, in the unlikely event that that's the case, you can come to EECIP and find his phone number and his email and his LinkedIn account and connect with him that way. But you can also find projects that different agencies have registered. These are projects that contain the phrase drinking water in some way, shape, or form. So this one looks like it was registered by New Mexico. This is a drinking water sample collector. So you can, the agency can add a project description, some basic information about when it started, how recently it's been active, the status of the project. You can embed links to more information about the project. It allows you over on the right side to attach documents. So if there are files that you want to share, that can be done through EECIP. You can upload a number of different formats through this interface. And you can get contact information. So if you do want to reach out and get more information, it makes it easy to find the person that registered this information and reach out and learn a little bit more. Once you're in and you've set up your profile, if you want to add a new project, that's pretty straightforward as well. You just go to add a project and then click on the green add new button. And this allows you to put in all of the relevant details that we saw on the previous screen, the name, description. You can associate it with your agency. You can associate it with a specific type of media and program area. There are some attributes of the project. If it's an IT project, you can indicate whether it was built in-house as custom software or it's a commercial off-the-shelf product. You can add tags that help describe the project and make it easier for folks to search and find it. This is where you would add any relevant files, the contact information, and so forth. That's all done on the add a new project screen. And then my kind of favorite part of the site is the discussion forum. This is where you can have some conversations, ask some questions of your colleagues that are out there in the environmental protection enterprise, and get some answers back. Learn something, get some insights. If you're stuck on a particular problem, it's great to get input from others who have been down that road before you, and these are really, really useful for doing that. Again, you can subscribe to these so you can get notified when there are new posts or responses to a particular conversation. These are really active and they're really good sources of information. So I encourage folks to get registered and make use of this. There's a bunch of knowledge out there that you can tap into. And we hope this is a useful way to make those connections. Those are the main highlights I wanted to share. Let me go back to my slide deck here. Yeah, and here's just a list of links some of the resources I talked about today. The eEnterprise website, it's eEnterprisefortheenvironment.net, bit of a mouthful, and don't miss the hyphen there. That's got great information on the full range of different eEnterprise project teams that are out there. You can also learn more about the governance structure, who is involved. One of the pages on the site covers the digital strategy in more depth. You can find some links to the complete strategy document and also some other resources. We just published a new, draft framework for managing APIs together. That's up there now. We'll continue adding to that page as teams solidify plans for new standards, adopting new standards, creating standards, and other technical guidance and best practices that kind of nest under the digital strategy. And then definitely please do visit the eEnterprise Community Inventory platform. We would love to see a batch of new registrants getting engaged in the community. And then certainly please feel free to contact me anytime if you have questions, or you think you might have an interest in getting more personally involved in eEnterprise. Would love to hear from you and welcome calls, emails, all the above. So that's what I've got. Thanks so much for the invitation today and for taking a little bit of time out of your day to share it with me. Anthony, I'll come back to you, and we can either take questions or move on, however you want to work it.
Thanks, Kurt. Well, I really appreciate you taking time to walk through some of these things. Like I said, I wanted to make this connection for a long time as part of the CITWS Prime project, especially really highlighting the EECIP platform, which I think is just far more robust than what we've got on the ASDA website. And I think it's just more appropriate towards the eventual work that states will be doing, like you said, with interfacing application development. So I encourage everybody to check out these resources, get involved. I think there's a lot of opportunities for people that are just generally interested in environmental and public health data. And so I hope you find some value in some of that stuff. So thanks again, Kurt. And I really liked your Avengers analogy. So so let's take some time and shift focus a little. I'll take control here. And I wanted to introduce at this time, I think, Damon Gutterman and Victoria Phillips. These are some of the Avengers, I think, that Kurt referenced. And we're going to talk a little bit about strategic partnerships, I think. And, there was some risk bringing IT managers into the CITWS modernization process, but I think that the engagement has been really positive, and I think the new perspectives have been really refreshing. So, Kurt, you can camera off if you want for now, and Damon, we could bring you on. So thank you, Kurt, and welcome Damon from Mass. Seems like we're all having a nice chilly fall day.
Yeah, it was in the 40s this morning in New England when we woke up today, so not quite Colorado cold yet. We haven't seen any snow, but certainly it's, I think, the end of summer up here.
Yeah, it's hitting pretty hard today. So I thought maybe we would start with more of a high level look at how IT is structured at the state to kind of give some background and context, and then we could move into kind of the strategic partnerships and all that. So I'll let you kick off.
Sure. So what Victoria and I thought we'd do is both tell everyone what our roles are at Mass DEP, and then we'll spin into discussing how our partnerships have helped drinking water, and then maybe some challenges as well, so you know that the there's good and bad in being really close between the business and the IT side of things. Again, I am the supervisor of the Safe Drinking Water Act section, so I work directly for the program administrator in Massachusetts, Yvette DePisa. My staff in the headquarters office are responsible for all the Safe Drinking Water Act rules. So we do everything from the surface water treatment rules sets to the phase rules to consumer confidence reports. But we're also responsible for all the IT for the drinking water program. So my staff, and I think Andrew and Tio might be able to make this since it's now a virtual conference, are responsible for maintaining and enhancing and replacing whenever necessary all the tools we've developed over the 26 years for me now, I think slightly longer for Andrew, that we've been rolling out for staff to use in their day-to-day activities. We are a scattered program. We have 4 regional offices in Massachusetts. Each of them cover the geographic part of the state that they are centered in, and they are independently managed. So none of them report to me. None of them technically report to Yvette DePisa either, but we all have to work as one program. So it's a bit of a challenge whenever we roll out IT work making sure that we have engagement with the regional staff as well. And so it's pretty important to have work groups that are also then reporting back to my section about needs that have come up in the field staff, because they do the direct compliance and enforcement work, they do the inspection work, they do the water quality reviews. And so what we try to do are a lot of the things that Kurt was talking about is evaluating workflows, looking for opportunities where electronic tasks and tools can actually help the field staff and help the headquarters staff as well, because our responsibilities are to report up to the senior management about the activities of the program, to look for problems, to look for solutions, to talk about what's in the Boston Globe this week, what's EPA looking for. And so there's a lot of needs to be able to gather all that data in a very facile and understandable manner for all different audiences. And so that's a lot of what my staff does as well, is a lot of that information gathering. But again, I think it's helpful that I came up through the business side. My background is as a chemist. I came into the drinking water program in the monitoring programs, overseeing our monitoring waivers program, and doing our sample schedules and doing some of the tools that we helped improve over the last 25 years, so that staff who now into those roles can do their jobs a little more easily. But I'll bounce it to Victoria so you can hear about what her role is, and then we'll talk about some of the more interesting things we do together.
Thanks, Damon. I'm Victoria Phillips. I'm the director of the Enterprise Information Office here at Mass DEP and work very closely with Damon and his team. My role has evolved over the years, as has information management across the years at Mass DEP. We've been very fortunate that we have been developing pretty comprehensive data systems going back 30 years now, which is actually a really frightening number of years when I think about it, because some of those data systems that we developed 30 years ago are still working and are still part of our day-to-day operations. And part of what we're doing in Mass DEP is really looking at how to be more effective at using the data that we've collected over the years, as well as recognizing our current realities of less staff, like everyone on this call, but also the challenges that we've had within the information technology sector. And when Mass DEP 30 years ago was first embarking on our technology journey of collecting data to use for environmental policy decisions, we had our own IT organization. They were in-house. We had, at one time, good number of 50 IT developers, managers, project managers. We managed our own network. Well, that has evolved. And I think probably our story is not dissimilar to many of yours, where about 12, 14 years ago, we basically consolidated our IT, and we now have 6 energy and environmental agencies, which shares one information technology office. So DEP no longer has technology resources that work directly for us. We share those technology resources with 5 other agencies. And at the same time, we also do have a Massachusetts-wide overarching information technology office. They are really responsible for the networking, the security, the identity management across the agencies. But IT has gradually and quite aggressively moved to a much more consolidated model. So we in the agency, Mass DEP, constantly face the struggle of the very comprehensive integrated data systems that we've built that are mission critical to our agency, including a drinking water system, that we are competing for resources at every point in time. And also basically having to communicate the value and the need to either develop, enhance, or really maintain these critical systems all the way up to the central IT office that reports directly to the governor. So what I do in the organization is I am not information technology. Like Damon said, I have an interesting path as well. I started out my career as a geochemist and actually did criminal enforcement with the agency. Switched more over to information management and information technology, and was on the technology side both at Mass DEP throughout up to the dreaded central IT for several years. Then came back to Mass DEP to be more programmatically focused. And what I try and do is bridge the department's needs of really diverse and all-consuming for information technology. I think we could we had no lack of projects. There's always a need to collect more information, to do it better, to be able to collect it, use it, and share it with the public more efficiently and effectively, and balance those needs within the department with my IT counterparts, and balancing those resources that they have together. And we're doing really a mini e-enterprise at Mass DEP and at our 6 agencies, really trying to look at how we can use shared platforms. So we build once, use many. We will never get more IT resources. In fact, they are constantly dwindling with our state budgets. So really looking at how we can reuse and use our resources that we have access to as efficiently and effectively as possible. So that involves Damon and I working together, and it really is a partnership at all times to work with IT to compete for those very, very scarce resources. And I think one of the things that is most important that E-Enterprise was talking about, it is a shared governance model, it's a communication model, and it's really being able to have those conversations when it's extremely challenging, when there aren't enough resources to do the work, and really be able to talk through the different options and opportunities to hopefully get where we need to be. And that's I think that challenge that Damon and I have faced over the 20 plus years we've worked together is how to balance the needs of the program with what we have available for information technology.
Thanks, Victoria.
I think it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Damon. I didn't want to cut you off.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I was just going to comment. I think that, generally speaking, the central IT and the consolidation of IT has been a real challenge at the states, and that's been a major characteristic for drinking water programs that's changed through the PRIME project. So it has a substantial impact on modernization and implementation plans. And so I don't know if you guys want to comment on that, or Damon, if you had anything.
Yeah, no, I can comment on that. I mean, I think one of the things I was going to talk about is how IT development personally for me and my role has changed over that quarter century. As Victoria said, we now deal with centralized IT, but they have embedded some staff back in our physical building. So prior to the pandemic remote working, we still could actually sit in a cubicle, which is what I started doing 20 years ago with our developer, looking at them coding, talking about our needs, talking about how things might look on the screen. It was a little simpler when you're just developing, what our assiduous free drinking water Oracle database. But even there, one of the things I thought I'd talk about as both a challenge and yet something that's interesting is that we use an enterprise Oracle system that basically conjoins us with the other media programs. So behind the scenes, we share data tables with the waste site cleanup program, the wastewater programs, the air program, and the other water programs under my bureau. So when we think about making a change to our database, there's a lot of interaction necessary. And we have different slices of people like me and Andrew that represent the drinking water program coming together to talk about common needs. And I was really pleased to see in a lot of the principles Kurt was talking about some of the practices that we've used at Mass DEP over the decades. Because we do this, can we build one solution kind of stuff very often. We built our own, what's really for this community an equivalent to lab to state. So it's a water quality reporting system that gets electronic data reporting in from the laboratories to the drinking water program. But it wasn't built for just drinking water, it was built for the entire agency. So some parts of the agency use it to report in just standard narrative reports. We use it actually for an annual report as well that gets both inventory updates as well as staffing updates. So we have this big web portal now that captures, for us it's like 20 different forms, both water quality and annual reports. But there are air quality people and waste site cleanup people and wastewater people who are also then using it as a common platform. Because one of the things that I've really sort of tried to appreciate over these years is that the outside world doesn't see me as DEP drinking water. They just see me as DEP. And so when we have a shared reporting entity like a municipality, they want to see a common reporting platform. So the ability for them to log on to EDP and then decide, what am I submitting today, is so much more beneficial for them, because they don't need to log on to 6 different systems for 12 different media programs. And so I think those kind of practices are very beneficial for us. And it's helpful to sit down with someone like Victoria and say, hey, doesn't other parts of the agency need this? Because what I was going to say she was finishing on was, we're all fighting for resources now. So the more cross-bureau, cross-program ideas that you can bring to the table, the more likely it is you're going to get an IT project funded and completed. It's very similar to how we've been doing the Exchange Network grants. Multi-state projects typically are looked at much better, and in our microcosm of that, multi-bureau projects are looked at much more favorably.
Excellent, Damon. Thank you. I wanted to, since we're getting close to our hour, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the experiences that you guys had on the modernization board, since I've got you both, and I think that builds nicely on some of what we've laid out. So maybe Victoria, starting with you, just thinking back to like last fall, we were first discussing SIDWIS, and now kind of fast forwarding up to having served as the co-chair on the modernization board. What were some of your impressions? Have they evolved? And then what are maybe some of your thoughts looking forward? And then we'll turn to you, Damon.
So thank you, Anthony. The SIDWIS Modernization Board has been really a very eye-opening experience for me, and it was something that I was honored to be asked to be the co-chair, as coming from, I'm part of E-Enterprise, so I am on the leadership council representing Massachusetts for E-Enterprise on the state side. And we have been very focused on, as Damon said, leaning our business processes, trying to build something once to use for many. So this was an opportunity for me to participate in a project which very selfishly would have great benefit for Massachusetts. And I, of course, realized that if Massachusetts were able to join the SIDWIS community, we would get great benefits from not only the shared platform that SIDWIS is using, and the ability to share data, build once, use many. But let's also be really frank here. It would be one less system, at least one comprehensive system, that we would not have to build in Massachusetts, at least for the core data that we report to EPA. And I went into this project, knowing some of the history. Damon has been obviously great at keeping me in the loop as SIDWIS has progressed throughout the years, and looking at the project and knowing where it was a year ago, and looking at, as we brought the states together with both not only program managers, but bringing in the IT contacts as well, in partnership with EPA, to see if there was a way to ensure it at the very minimum that extensive communication, and really ensuring that all parties understood each other's goals, concerns, and what we really needed to get to a viable end product for all parties, and to see how that would evolve, because a lot of the people coming into this new CIDWIS phase perhaps weren't there at the beginning, like I was not, and to see how that evolved. And I was not surprised, but really pleased with the active communication and the active listening that I felt was happening on both sides, both the state participants and the EPA participants. I think folks were incredibly frank at what opportunities they felt were either missed or could be perhaps explored slightly differently now, on what the challenges were, what things went really well, in ways that if those conversations weren't happening, I think we really would be struggling to even think that we could have a viable product in the near future. And I think the fact that everybody came to the table with that willingness and eagerness to work together to get to a shared product was just made the last year, my participation on the board, incredibly enjoyable.
Great.
So I'll leave it at that and turn it over to Damon.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Victoria. Damon, same question.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is, the centralization of IT that so many states have experienced, including Massachusetts, really pushed the pendulum away from the idea that we would be a CIDWIS-free state any longer. The challenge of us trying to maintain a drinking water database in a shared environment like we do in Mass has really been almost impossible with the battle for resources. So as Victoria said, we're really happy with the idea of going to a centralized system, which then also opens up the possibility of the contracting world that we know has worked with CIDWIS State. The vendors who are out there designing for a common platform like Drinking Water Watch and those kind of things, because we built a lot of those parallels. We have a CMDP, we have a Drinking Water Watch equivalent, but they're not the same, and it's a lot of heavy lifting on our part to maintain those services and those tools. So we definitely are excited about the idea of a prime and a modernization of CIDWIS. So I'm very pleased actually that we brought business and IT. Coming to the DMUC every year, you see some states that have a little more of one side, a little less of the other, and vice versa. And oftentimes it's a real struggle to understand the balance of business need and what's possible in the IT world, or what's even available in the IT world. So I do think it's a very beneficial dual perspective that we bring at the modernization board right now.
Awesome, Damon. Thank you both for your participation and perspectives. And we're getting to the end of our proceedings now. So I wanted to just last shot to Victoria and Damon. Any parting remarks?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please.
We were both hesitating. I would say I'd like to both build on both CIDWIS, but also the e-enterprise that Kurt Rakowskis was talking about earlier. I encourage people to check out EECIP. If you have more interest in e-enterprise, I think the foundations and the fundamentals that we're focusing on there are beneficial both across state to EPA, but also within your state organizations. And there's a lot of information and a lot of people who both want to learn what you all are doing, but also want to share what they're doing. And it's a great resource opportunity.
Yeah, I would definitely second that. You know, we had a very good experience stealing some tech from New Hampshire for a private well application to be well informed. And the e-enterprise people actually decided to use it as, let's get multi-states into this idea. Let's host it centrally. Let's solve a problem that almost every drinking water program has to deal with, which is that private homeowners are coming to you all the time saying, hey, I tested my well. Can you help me understand it, even though you're not my regulator? And so I think it's a really good example of how we can solve common problems, and it allows us to see how, you know, even if it's just a small thing like that, it's easy. It took us a few months, and it's deployed. And you know, we get pretty good volume there that helps our smaller staff avoid, you know, more intensive conversations with people we don't regulate.
Well, thank you, Damon. And I'll invite Kurt back on if you want to flip your camera back on. Kurt, give any parting, or just to say goodbye to everyone.
And find the button.
If you could find the button.
There we go.
Any parting remarks?
Nothing else really substantive to say. I think it was it worked really well, Damon and Victoria, to have you guys kind of follow on to the e-enterprise remarks. I think this went together nicely, and was happy to be a part of it. And thanks for the invitation. And yeah, please, just one more final plug for EECIP. Oh, and actually one more shameless plug. E-enterprise is hosting a monthly webinar series right now. We had to cancel our in-person national meeting, which was scheduled for May. Every month we're hosting a webinar on a different topic. Our next one is this Thursday. It's going to be on the digital strategy, coincidentally, and it's going to go a little bit deeper into that information-centric principle. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more, you can go to eenationalmeeting.net and find information about how to register. You can also view recordings of all of the past webinars we've had. We've got another one coming up on October 8th on citizen science. So I encourage you to check that out. We'll have some information posted about that following this Thursday's webinar. That's all I got. Thanks again.
Excellent, Kurt. Thanks again for joining. So for the folks at home, we were recording. I'll have the recording of this webinar posted by the end of the day. I'll also gather up a bunch of the resources that Kurt mentioned and make sure that that gets posted with the summary materials so you guys have some engagement points, know how to get involved with EECIP and e-enterprise if you want to learn more. Also, getting some registration links for EE 2020. We'll plug some of that. Definitely a lot of valuable information there. So thanks everybody for joining. We're on again at 2:30 Eastern time for our last session of the DMUC, and that's going to focus on CIDWS modernization. So get your lunches, get your questions. Hopefully we get some good discussion going. So thanks to the panel again. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks. You too.